So, really excited. I am going to talk about ggwhat. Oh, by the way, for those that are kind of sticklers on design, yes, I do have a red background, and I know it's sort of a no-no, but it's after lunch, so I had to figure out a way to keep you guys awake. Okay, so we're going to talk about ggwhat today, specifically about ggplot, and a little bit about sort of the ecosystem, right? Because ggplot has been around for a long, long time. All right, before I do that, kind of the caveat, my opinions are mine alone. I am affiliated with a lot of organizations here locally. My day job, I work for Microsoft. I am a technical solutions specialist for Azure, data, and AI. I work with the federal government, so I help federal clients sort of transition their workloads into the cloud, anything that's related to data science, analytics, machine learning, et cetera. As Jared said, I am one of the founders of Data Community DC. For those that don't know, Data Community DC was started in 2012 with 2 meetups, Data Science DC, Statistical Programming DC, and now it's sort of grown to a community of over 20,000 people in the local area. So we always have events. If you go to datacommunitydc.org, you can look at the calendar, see what's going on. I still run kind of the Statistical Programming DC meetup, not as often as I used to, but I still try to kind of have a few events a year. I also teach. I am an adjunct professor at Georgetown and at GW. I teach a big data class, and this semester I'm actually teaching a data viz class. So kind of the talk today sort of spawned from that. So you might ask yourself, well, what do I do when I'm not teaching, working, or running a meetup? That's my family. My daughter Samantha, my son Joseph, and Karen, who's in the back. Hi, Karen. And she's really embarrassed. So a little anecdote about my daughter Samantha. I went to the Our Ladies meetup last week with Kelly, and I got home, and she knows I run all these things. And when I got home, she asked me, like, what are you doing? I said, I was at this meetup is with Our Ladies, and her eyes just went like this big. She's 13. She's like, and she's not about R, but when I told her specifically about Our Ladies, she just went like that, and she's like, I want to go to the next event. So I will bring my 13-year-old daughter to the next Our Ladies event, whenever that happens. So I'm excited. We might have a potential R user here. I'm really excited. Okay, ggplot. So raise your hand if you know and or use ggplot. Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. So how many people got started in R because of ggplot? Okay, so a lesser, but that's actually kind of a little bit about my story. The first few things I did when I started learning R, which, by the way, I started running the meetup group without knowing R. I was really interested in the community. I had gone to New York a couple of times before Jared's time. Just clarify that. And I'd seen what they were doing over there, and I'm like, imitation is the best form of flattery. So I figured, let's just do the same thing. And I volunteered to kind of start running the group a few years ago. And I didn't know. And the first few meetings, we just sort of sat, a small group of people, 10 people, and our speakers would just talk, and we would just listen for 3 hours. Sort of everyone was in the room awed about what was going on. So that was the start. But anyway, going back to ggplot. The first things that I started doing a lot with R was, of course, visualizations. And this was probably about 2010. So this is before ggplot even 1.0. It was probably still 0.9. So the ggplot today is very, very, very different than the ggplot of yesteryear, right? There was an article a few months ago or last year about the 10th birthday of ggplot, and it's at version 3.0. So, before, if you wanted, and this is actually, I found this today. This is a little gist that I put on my GitHub account years ago. I needed to do a hexbin plot. ggplot didn't have a hexbin plot. So I used the hexbin package and the hmis package to do all the cutting and basically extracted the data from this object and threw it into ggplot for the actual plotting part, because ggplot didn't do hexbin, but now it actually does. But the point is, how many packages? So there are about, 13,000 packages on CRAN today, roughly. How many packages do you think that ggplot either packages that depend on or import? These are two different words, but essentially that, for lack of a better explanation, packages that actually depend on ggplot. Throw a number out there. How many? 5,000. 5,000? Nah, that's too big. But good guess. Anybody care to guess? You're not the next contestant at The Price is Right. I'm sorry. All right. So the number is 1,400. I mean, think about it, right? Like, and these are things that you probably don't even know about. Neither do I, because it's so big. But that's kind of the point. That's sort of what I wanted to show you a little bit about the things that are out there now. Focusing more on the more current packages or things that are really ingrained into ggplot, right? Because the ggplot ecosystem has evolved so much. It's a great tool. I keep using it, not on a day-by-day basis, but I still love building a graph, kind of thinking from data, building a graph, and sort of coding it and making it look beautiful. So, all right. So I know, sorry, the text is a little small, but here's a plot. So this is a faceted plot, you know that. So first of all, this is a plot that shows essentially the number, on the x-axis you have the number of CRAN downloads for a given package over the last 5 years. I figured there's no real way to understand kind of the extent of a package, but as a proxy for that, I used a package called CRAN, I forget, to pull the statistics from CRAN, and which tells you like all the different packages, what depends on what. So you can actually build a graph along all with dependencies, not from a like DevOps perspective. And Max can talk about that because Max builds ggplot every time there's a release, and I hear it takes like 12 hours. So, but more for like understanding. Now, here's the thing. The color blue, so the color red means just a package. The blue color means a current ggplot extension. ggplot has a whole slew of extensions going for it today, about 40 if I'm not mistaken. And these are really, think of them as add-ons, things that allow you to do other things that you can't really do with ggplot unless you could code it. But these are just mechanisms of extending ggplot with adding new statistics, new geomes, new geometric objects, new layering capabilities, etc. But what's really interesting, right? Again, so we see, what's interesting is like the top packages over here. So there's depends and imports. I'm not really sure what the difference means, so anyone that's more versed in the package ecosystem can talk about that. But it's just the way, some packages depend on a package, some package import. Import usually means it actually loads another package into your namespace as you load in your package. So, but we see at the top, this is the depends. So we have HMISC. That's Frank Harrell's kind of historical R package, like utility package. It depended, it's a ggplot. I didn't know that. Caret. Now, some of the blue ones are current extensions, so we've got, I'll just read them from my screen, if I can. They're like GG something. It's too small, sorry, I can't read it. But the point is, what's interesting is you start seeing kind of now granted, this is just a total over a 5-year period. Some of these extensions are newer, so the numbers are definitely, aren't supposed to be that high. But they're actually pretty high if you look about it. Now, what does that mean? That means that people actually know about these. I thought people would not necessarily know about these extensions or other packages. But there's a really long tail of all these packages that depend on ggplot that, again, I have no idea what they are. And probably neither do you, unless you're doing something really, really specific, or you wrote a package and you uploaded it to CRAN a few years ago because you were doing something really, really specific. There's just no, I guess there's no, other than like some of the, like the RStudio site and the website that I'm going to show you in a second, there's really no good mechanism of understanding the extent of it. But I wanted to show you that there is a huge impact, right? There is a huge extent of how ggplot is being used so much. So actually, this is the code. So actually, to build this plot, I used one of the extensions. It's called ggstance, and this is just the code. And essentially what ggstance does is it takes your standard geomes and makes them, flips them horizontally. Rather than building a plot normally and doing coordinate flip, you build it from you just sort of switch your variables around, and it builds your geomes in a horizontal fashion. So if we go back to the plot, that's, it's a horizontal bar chart, but I defined the x as x and the y as y, and I didn't have to flip anything. I wanted to try a new one, another of the current extensions called ggRepel, which allows you to take text. It actually, I'll show you a picture about it, but the geom bar h Geom doesn't take a label as an aesthetic, so I couldn't use, it wasn't working that well. So what are these extensions? These extensions are called ggplot extensions. There's a great website called ggplot2.exts.org, a beautiful website, and if you go to it, it's over here. And again, there's all of the ones that are published. I don't know if there are more. There may be more, I'm not sure, but at least these are published on the website. You can actually add your extension if you build one. So this is a good resource, right? If you've never heard of these extensions, like at least you know where to go find them. And a lot of these incorporate, some of the newer dynamic plotting stuff. It's not just static. It's for rendering stuff on Shiny or for web applications or whatever. More of what I'm focusing on today is more on the static stuff. So now you know that. So I'm going to just, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the ones that I kind of like the most. There's 40 of them. I'm just going to go through the screenshots. But the first one is ggiraf. And what this does is just allows you to make ggplots interactive. Sometimes you don't really have to build a Shiny app or do something really complex. You just need to make just a simple graph interactive. So that allows you to do that. This is ggRepel. So actually, I have the website open here. So the whole idea of ggRepel is like, sorry, let me exit presentation mode. So the whole idea of ggRepel is that if you pass in a geom with labels or something, it will actually relay out the text part of it so that it actually looks legible, because otherwise it's right, like your label's on top of your data point. So pretty good. Sometimes you need to plot stuff and your text is just, and again, I really love ggplot. And a lot of times that the first call, like the ggplot and the geom, gets you probably 80% of the way there. But then to get it to really, really look nice and to look, picture perfect, publishing ready. There's all these options you can tweak. It's so extensible, but learning all the possibilities is just overwhelming sometimes. So, but anyway, I still love it though. Let's see what else. The next one is, this one is called ggraph. So ggraph, who here makes graphs for a living? Okay. So if you haven't tried ggraph, I really recommend. If you use iGraph, ggraph is actually a wrapper on top of iGraph, and it makes, it uses the ggplot syntax. It uses sort of kind of the tidyverse mechanisms in the ggplot syntax to really build a graph. So I'm going to show you quickly what that might look like. That's not. Okay, so this one here. I guess I'm jumping the gun here, but so this is actually a plot made with ggraph, and what you do is you use that in combination with a package called tidygraph, which basically allows you to make a graph object from tables and data frames, and then you pass that into ggraph, and you tell it to plot your nodes, plot your edges, and it uses the same type of syntax, the aesthetic syntax, and this and that. So, iGraph is great, but the plotting part of iGraph is, ugh. So raise your hand if you agree with that. Okay, there we go. So try ggraph. Let's see what else. There's another one called geomnet. I haven't used that one, but it's also another plotting package. Let's see here. This one is called GG Themes. It sort of packages together a bunch of pre-made themes. I think there's like an Airbnb theme, and there's a whole bunch of themes that people have created for, making like the Economist theme or things like that. If you want to make your plot look like your not standard ggplot thing. Again, there's 40 of these, so I'm not going to talk about them. But I did want to make you aware, and that's really the purpose of today. I just wanted to share all this information with you in case you didn't know about it, and show you like a couple of things how easy this can make it. Another one, these are more. So there's GG Mosaic and these other ones. And the last two, the last one I'm going to show today is this one called GG Ridges, which I really like. And to do that, I was going to go and use, well, I guess first of all, who likes Lego? So we see a Lego theme, right, Rafi? And I didn't know you were talking about Lego either, or Lego as a theme. But so Again, in order to demo some of these things, I wanted to build a couple of vizzes, and I got the data from a website called Rebrickable. If you don't know about this, it's really cool. It's actually a website, kind of a user, kind of a Lego enthusiast maintained website. There's another one called Lugnet, I believe. But what they do, they actually have all this database of all of the different Lego sets that have been created over time with an inventory of parts, what colors they have, the themes, whatnot, and they actually provide all the data in CSV formats, and this is sort of this is kind of, I guess, not in a database format, but this is the link, the data diagram or the data dictionary between all the sets. So, you can see what theme a set is, what year it is, and so there's actually like a lot of really creative stuff that you can do. And I was hoping, I started playing around with some of these extensions to do some visualizations. I was successful in some and not so successful in others. So the first one is, at least I wanted to show you, right, for the purposes of ggridges. So this is just a plot. Somebody else made this. This is a plot of the average number of Lego parts over time, kind of just taking all the sets per year, taking the average, and counting the number of parts. So you see that on average, it looks like the sets have been getting bigger. There seems to be somewhat of a dip. I'm not looking to explain that. Anyway, so it's a nice looking plot. Probably could be better. So that's kind of the data that we're working with. The table of the years and things like that. And so I kind of wanted to extend that a little bit. And so I always tell people not to live code, and then I always end up live coding. So here's my data frame. So again, the next thing is I just wanted to look at a distribution. Like I didn't want to look at the average. I wanted to look at a distribution. So what do? I just do a box plot. That's kind of ugly. It is sort of you do have some of a power distribution. You have a lot of sets with a small number of parts and a very little number with a big number of parts. So that's why you have all this stuff and all these outliers. So again, this is just using basic ggplot, but I wanted to show you the ggridges because I thought that might lend itself to do something that looked a little bit interesting, because I really like this, at least the way they show it over here in the website. I like, let me go back here to the extensions. I really like this. What I was hoping to do, it's all the way down here. Something like this, basically like kind of, it gives you kind of plot the difference. You have maybe the y-axis being time, so just to kind of see how that distribution changes over time with some color. With ggridges, the nice thing about ggridges is that this is a personal opinion, but I like these because unlike box plots or violin plots, so box plots just gives you a square, right? And violin plot takes the distribution but makes it, it opens it up and you have two sides to it. A lot of times that makes the data look inflated, I believe. Just visually, I think a violin plot, it probably has its use cases. But personally, I believe that I think a violin plot should be used sparingly. So I kind of like this because this allows you to plot all these different distributions over however you're going to partition your data. So I attempted to do that. It wasn't very successful, but I'll show you at least. So I'm loading in the library. I'm using ggridges, and I'm just loading this in. And it looks like one big ugly mess. So I still don't know how to get it to like overlay, but you kind of sort of see a bit different. I don't know if I'm plotting the right thing either. Again, it's kind of the nice thing. It's true because I'm calculating. I think I'm calculating a different kind of distribution. Again, read the docs. So yeah, read the docs. To wrap up, I will go back to this. And again, this was a little plot that I made with ggraph. And here's the plot. Here's the code for the plot. What I was hoping to do is to do something like this. With the colors of the Lego, the evolution of colors over time of Lego. So does anybody recognize this? So, I'm sorry? Yes. So this is the evolution of Crayola colors over, 70 years. This was, I don't remember who did it originally, but actually I don't believe this is a ggplot version, but then someone went and made it like a ggplot version of this. So I wanted to see if I could use the extensions, some of the extensions, to kind of make, because the colors of Lego have changed. And the nice thing about the data set is actually rich enough that it tells you the colors of the pieces with RGB values and all this sort of stuff. So again, I'm kind of a Lego nut. I'm kind of was playing around with this, and I thought that was an interesting data set to use. So that's what I wanted to do. Haven't achieved it, but I'll get there. No packages were harmed in the making of this talk. These are some of the other packages that I use that are not tidyverse or ggplot. So I use reprex. Thanks, Mark, for telling me about that last night. So this code is actually cut and paste from our session, and I could just paste it into PowerPoint, and it looks great. So thank you about that. CRAN logs and DL-stats are where I got the data for the packages, like the package metadata. So thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you. Come to our meetup events, join us, be a part of the community, enjoy the rest of the conference, hang out, have fun, talk to people, and thanks once again.